On today's show, the last era of Dallas Mavericks basketball was built on a star never giving up on a franchise. This era of Mavs basketball ends with a franchise giving up on a star. What did Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont just do to the Dallas Mavericks by trading Luka Doncic? I'll tell you on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm here because I have to be here.
Explain yourself. Sorry.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
Welcome. You're Locked On to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Today's episode, Nico Harrison makes some comments about moving Luka Doncic, trading Luka Doncic that are indefensible. Even me, I couldn't defend him. We'll talk about the ramifications of trading Luka Doncic. But let's start here. And let's just take everything at face value. Let's pretend like everything that's been said so far, everything that's come out from Nico Harrison's side, from the Mavs side, from Luka's side, the LeBron Lakers side, everything. Now let's take it all at face value. And if we take it all at face value, it's indefensible. It makes no sense for the Dallas Mavericks to trade a 25-year-old superstar in Luka Doncic for the reasons that they have said and the reasons that they have given so far. Indefensible. The fact that your whole franchise is built on the back of a star being loyal to you to a fault. Dirk lost out on millions, $100 million probably, by being loyal to you as a franchise. And yeah, I know that pretty much everybody that's involved in all this was not there when Dirk was giving up all this money. Front office has changed over. The ownership has now changed over. I can't imagine what Mark Cuban's going through right now today. But that star in Dirk Nowitzki gave up everything to be loyal to a fault to this franchise. Built a statue, named a street after him, retired his jersey, and on that statue you put the phrase, "Loyalty never fades away." Loyalty never fades away, huh? That is not the case today with the Mavs trading Luka Doncic and with Nico Harrison making this move that came out of nowhere, working in the shadows, it was said to be. Didn't even talk to other teams about it. Didn't even get other offers. Just straight up, this is the timeline of this trade. According to the Dallas Morning News, great article from Brad Townsend, lots of good stuff in there. Rob Pelinka, the GM of the Lakers, and Nico Harrison started having, quote, basketball conversations more than a month ago. Then all of a sudden, Nico Harrison said, would you do this? Talking about trading for Luka Doncic. More than a month ago. We're dealing with the injury stuff. Rob Pelinka responded, nah, you're joking, right? That's literally the quote. He said, nah, you're joking, right? Imagine getting hit by a nah from Rob Pelinka. And Nico Harrison responded, interesting, maybe I would. And then Nico Harrison said to the Dallas Morning News, and then it just built over time over the last 3 weeks. Where did it start if this is where it ended? What was the first offer from Rob Pelinka? If this is where you ended for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and one first-round pick? If this is where it ended, where did you start? I tried to make the case on the show early this morning, and I was at a friend's, and I didn't have any of my stuff, and now I'm back, and the adrenaline drove me all the way home. Made it home safe. I'm good. Probably should have gotten pulled over a couple times. But I tried last night to try to make the case of, all right, unless Luka Doncic, his leg is cooked, he's going to turn into Joel Embiid, and the injury stuff is just too much, or he's Andrew Luck, and the injury stuff is going to take him out of loving basketball and loving playing in the NBA, and he's going to retire in like 2 or 3 years. Unless that's the case, then it's indefensible. And today, I'm looking at everything at face value. I'm taking everything that's been said to us at face value and coming away saying, nah, you're joking, right? I'm Rob Pelinka right now in this scenario. Nah, you're joking, right? That's how he would respond, and that's how everyone has responded. This is the worst trade for a star player in NBA history. If we're taking everything at face value, I'm not going to try to add a little anymore. Oh, what if Luka's leg is... I'm not going to do any of that right now. It's the worst star trade in NBA history. Let's take a look at some of them. 2023. Recently. Like, not even 2 years ago. Kevin Durant to the Suns. Kevin Durant was not young. For Mikal Bridges, who just got traded for 5 first-round picks, by the way. Cam Johnson, who is about to get traded for multiple first-round picks. 4 unprotected picks. And a pick swap. Anthony Davis, who just got traded to the Mavericks in 2019 to the Lakers, got traded for Lonzo Ball, young, interesting, high draft pick player. Ingram, young, interesting, high draft pick player. Josh Hart, great role player on a title potential team in the Knicks right now. The number 4 pick, they knew where it was going to be. So that's a top 5 pick. A 2022 first and a swap in 2023. The Mavs got 1 first-round pick and Anthony Davis, who him and Max Christie are going through it right now in Mavs circles. I don't know if they'll ever be embraced by Mavs fans because of what just happened in this. And it's probably going to be unfair to them. But Anthony Davis played 76 games last year, great. But 56 the year before that, 40 the year before that, 36 the year before that, 62, 56. I mean, he cannot stay on the floor. He's called day-to-day Davis for a reason. And he's going to turn 32 in March. So you get Anthony Davis and you get Max Christie, young, interesting player, but not even to the level of like the Lonzo Ingram Hart level, maybe Hart, but to that level for the Lakers traded Anthony Davis for. The worst star trade in NBA history for taking it at face value. Paul George to the Clippers. He's not even a superstar. There's never been a scenario where Paul George has been named a top 5 player in the NBA. I don't think. 6-time All-NBA. I mean, close. Did he ever finish an MVP? Okay, he finished 3rd in MVP for OKC in 2019. That was the one year that maybe he was up there. He got traded for SGA, turned into a top 5 player. They didn't know that at the time. He was a young, interesting player. Maybe the same as like what Ingram was, but I think people could see he was going to be better. Danilo Gallinari, like a rotation player. 5 first-round picks and 2 swaps. And it's not like the Mavericks didn't have any other offers on the table. Nico Harrison just didn't look for them.
Explain yourself. Sorry.
No, you. You explain yourself, because it doesn't make any sense. If I'm taking everything at face value, which is what I'm doing today, I'm not giving him any benefit of the doubt, taking everything at face value right now, then this was a fumble, not even a fumble, because a fumble in and of itself, by definition, is an accident. This was on purpose. An accident is letting Luka Doncic's contract run out and letting him walk in free agency for nothing, which is like what the Thunder did with Kevin Durant. What the Heat had to do with LeBron, you know? This wasn't even an accident. This was on purpose. He went out of his way and did this. Nah, you're joking, right? From Rob Pelinka. Nico Harrison didn't even try to fleece another franchise. There's teams out there with loads and loads of picks and young players and think that would leap at a chance to do this. It's the worst star trade in NBA history. The Mavs sent a 2025 second-round pick. If these are the only issues that Nico Harrison has brought up so far, the ones we talked about last night that started to come out about Luka's, the reason why the Mavs wanted to move on from Luka, the quotes from Nico Harrison, again, indefensible. If these are the reasons where he said we were concerned about his conditioning, concerned about his injury status, concerned about his preparation, if those concerned about paying him a max contract, you got to pay everybody. If those are the reasons, it's not good enough. At face value, it's the worst star trade in NBA history. Indefensible. And the comments and the talks about it are indefensible too. Nico Harrison may have just ruined a franchise. And I can't imagine they did it on purpose. But I got I got it ready. Because Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont may have just ruined a franchise. Talk about that and more coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Whew, I think my Apple Watch is going off because of my blood pressure. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Been using Game Time picks. I love it because it shows you good picks right at the top. I wish they had these for trades because maybe the Mavs would get a better trade. There's a Lakers-Mavs game coming up February 25th. There's also a Lakers-Mavs game that's at the top of my Game Time picks right now for April 9th. Luka's probably going to play in that one, and can you imagine what it's going to be like? If you want to boo Nico Harrison, maybe that's the time to do it. There's all kinds of great stuff on Game Time all the time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. You get last minute tickets. You get lowest prices guaranteed no matter where you're going in DFW right now.
Explain yourself.
Sorry.
They can. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. Still sticking with us. We'll continue to be about the Dallas Mavericks 5 days a week. We'll do a bunch of shows today. We'll do a post-game show. We'll do a post-game show on the Cavs show. So look out for that in your feeds. Thanks for hanging out with us. Shout out to the person on Twitter. I got my phone. It was obliterated last night, but shout out to the person on Twitter who said, what's wrong with you? Do you laugh? Is laughing a coping mechanism for you? Do you know anything about me? Yes, of course it is. Sometimes you just got to laugh through it because this makes no sense. The worst star trade in NBA history for the Dallas Mavericks. If last night was the what the hell just happened pod, apologies to the kids listening. If that was the what just happened podcast, the shock pod, this is the angry pod. This is the one where I just go, I'm taking everything at face value and it's not good enough. If those are the issues, the ones that I just talked about, the ones that Nico Harrison mentioned, where he said, we're concerned about his injury status, we're concerned about his conditioning and his commitment and all that. If those are the issues, you deal with them. Look at what the Heat have done for Jimmy Butler. Imagine what you deal with those issues. It's your star player. You get one of these players once every 50, 100 years. The Wizards are going to be bad for a decade to get a sniff at a guy this good. Let's do this right now. I'm going to go through the franchises and I'm going to tell you teams that haven't had a player as good as Luka Doncic ever in the history of the Pacers have never had a player as good. The Pistons is close. The Magic have never had a player as good as Luka. Dwight Howard, Shaquille O'Neal, no. The Hawks have never had a player. Dominique Wilkins, no. Trae Young, no. The Nets, Julius Irving, maybe when he was in there. The Raptors have never had a player as good as Luka Doncic. Kawhi Leonard, 1 year aside. The Hornets definitely haven't. The Wizards definitely have it. The Jazz have never had a player. The Pelicans have never had a player. The Blazers have never had a player. The Kings have never had a player as good as Luka Doncic. The Timberwolves have never had a player. The Clippers never had a player as good as Luka. The Grizzlies. The Rockets with Hakeem. I'll still put Hakeem because of longevity there. And you know what? I'll go Thunder too. Just to give them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Damn near half the league. Apologize to the kids. Has never had a player as good as Luka Doncic on their roster. And you gave him away for a 32-year-old Anthony Davis with injury issues, a young player in Max Christie, and 1 first-round pick. The worst star trade in NBA history. And if the issues are the issues, and I'm going to take it at face value, it's not good enough to give those answers. And now my question is, do you know what you just did? I'm talking just to Nico Harrison.
Explain yourself.
Sorry.
Do you know what you just did? How many messages, Instagram, TikTok, at Nick Van Exit, Twitter, YouTube comments, everywhere, of fans today saying, I will never watch a Dallas Mavericks game again. Shout out to the Slovenians because it's been nice. We appreciated everything. Loved watching Slovenia games in the summer. I hope that we did our best here on Locked On Mavs to cover your national team and all that, and never take it for granted, hopefully, and all that. Try to be fair, criticize, but also give praise every time we could. But do you know what you just did, Nico Harrison, to a franchise? You may have just ruined a franchise by making this deal. For what? For what? Here's what Nico Harrison said in the Dallas Morning News. We really feel like we got ahead of what was going to be a tumultuous summer, him being eligible for the Supermax and also a year away from being able to opt out of any contract. And so we really felt like we got in front of that. We know teams, they've had it out there. Teams have been loading up to try and sign him once he comes available. Then where were those teams now? Where were the bidders? At least create a bidding war for Luka. And if you wanted to remain in the shadows, did you only have the trust of one team? Apparently there was a second team maybe involved. I guess the Jazz maybe considered that because there's a 3-team trade. But did you only have the trust of one team that it wouldn't get out there? And you couldn't go to other teams and say, hey, what would you do for Luka? Just throwing it out. Just throwing it out there. You know, we're just talking. Well, what would you do for Luka? You know, you didn't do your. And if he didn't do his due diligence, he ruined a franchise because of negligence and incompetence. But if he did do his due diligence, and this is what he got, the hell's going on? What's wrong with Luka? Nah, you're joking, right? That's what Rob Pelinka said to Nico Harrison. Getting ahead of a contract, that is not a good enough reason. Getting ahead of a contract, we think he might opt out. That's not a good enough reason to get as bad of an offer as you did. And you should know. You got Kyrie Irving for 1 first-round pick, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Spencer Dinwiddie. Kyrie's issues were, him being blackballed by the league was worse than, or Luka's is worse than that. Right? Like, Kyrie's been incredible here and has been a leader and all that, and you saw through that, but you can't see through Luka's conditioning. You can't. I'm taking it at face value today. I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying I did that. I tried to do that yesterday. Not going to do it today. Maybe do it later today on whatever show I end up on. Here's another thing. Nico Harrison said, we really feel that defense wins championships. We think that players that we're bringing in add to the culture, which is important to what J. Kidd and I have been building. It's not good enough to build around Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd's system is going to get completely exposed and has been without Luka. What offense are they going to run? With Gafford, AD, PJ Washington out there, Klay, and Kyrie. What offense are you running? Because that's not going to be good enough to win a championship. That defense is going to be really good. We'll talk about that a little later. I'm feeling pretty good about the Mavericks' chances this year, actually. But to win a championship? No. And to build around Jason. Did you just pick Jason Kidd over Luka Doncic? Nico added. And then obviously, when you get an all-NBA player who's the first team all-defensive player, we think that's going to help us where we need it the most, on the defensive end. Okay, well, now you're going to need a lot of help on offense. At all the trade targets we've talked about over the last 6 years now completely changed. The Mavs need scoring and offensive creation more than anything. They need it real bad. And they got rid of Maxey, who was their one contract that we talked about that they could trade. Indefensible. Indefensible. I didn't get into the ramifications enough about what just happened and what Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont just did. But I think there's a couple layers here that people aren't talking about yet. I'll tell you what they are coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode brought to you by Prize Picks. You guys glad you're bringing this show to us today? Prize Picks and Game Time. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. Go check out Prize Picks. See how you can do it. Basketball is heating up, man. There's all kinds of basketball being played right now. There's no better way to get in on the action than Prize Picks. The best way for daily fantasy sports. 10 million members and billions in awarded winnings. Billions. Prize Picks makes it easy to turn it makes it easy and fun to turn your sports knowledge into real money. The fun word really threw me off because I don't know Prize Picks. Might be a minute for me to have fun with basketball again. All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players, more or less, on their stats, their points, rebounds, touchdowns, yards, anything like that. Download the app, use that code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly. Play a $5 lineup. You pick the 2 to 6 players, you pick more or less, and you just put $5 down on it. All you're investing is $5 in it. You get $50 back instantly. You can use on a bunch of other different lineups if you want. Check it out. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly. Play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
All right. It's not good enough. The answers, the quotes, the reasons, the excuses, everything so far at face value has not been good enough. If I'm going to take everything as it said, it has not been good enough from Nico Harrison, from everyone involved. The fact that Luka didn't know about this is indefensible. You cannot do that to a star player. And so, what did Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont, the governor of the Mavericks, what did they just do to this franchise and the city, honestly? Let's go through some ramifications. You may have just lost trust with every star player in the league. Who's going to trust the Dallas Mavericks now? Who's going to sign with the Dallas Mavericks now? You brought in Klay Thompson, pitched him, did everything to play with Luka. You pitched Kyrie to re-sign and to do everything he just did for money that nobody else could offer him, but also to play with Luka. You pitched Najee Marshall. You pitched everyone that signed that you were going to play with Luka Doncic. Look how much easier Luka Doncic can make your life. Oh, it's going to be so great. Klay, we'll tie your minutes to Luka. It's going to be so great. You spent 20 years, 41-21-1. You spent that long as a franchise trying to build up loyalty to Dirk Nowitzki. And the Mavs are known as, they took care of Dirk in his later years, and he's going to be set up for life, and the loyalty that he showed to this franchise and all that. You're known as the franchise that showed loyalty. Could be all gone in one false swipe. One false move? One false swipe. Whatever. Could be gone. Loyalty never fades away, huh? Guess not. You are not bigger than the Dallas Mavericks. You may have just lost trust with the fan base. How many comments all over the place? TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. Of fans saying, I will never watch another Dallas Mavericks game again. And you know what? I don't blame them. It is my professional interest to get every person as possible interested in the Dallas Mavericks. And I have sung their praises a lot on this show because it is in my vested interest to get you to care about the Mavericks more, you listening. And if you're going to build up 6 years of this is our star player, the face of a city, the face of a franchise, Luka Doncic, think about all the Stan accounts. Think about all the podcasts named after Luka. I had to change our freaking intro.
I'm here because I have to.
Because it's all about Luka. He's been what this whole franchise has been built around, based on. Dogs named Luka. Kids named Luka. And what did you just teach them? It don't matter. It don't matter. You do the one thing. The franchise did the one thing. Nico Harrison was gifted the one thing he was gifted when he took over the Dallas Mavericks is the top 5 bona fide all-star, all-NBA first team 5 times in a row player who was 25. And you just traded him like that without even telling him? You may have just lost trust with a whole fan base. A whole generation of people may stop caring about the Dallas Mavericks because of what? You just fundamentally change. They also fundamentally changed a team that worked. The best starting lineup in the NBA when they were all healthy. And health was going to be a big deal this season. But what? You were worried about health, and so you brought in Anthony Davis? Man, I'm really dogging Anthony Davis today. We're going to talk. There's going to be a lot of good things about him, but if at face value you were concerned about Luka's health the most, You brought in Anthony Davis. I think everyone even listening can hear the eye roll that I just did. And Nico just spent 3 years building this team around Luka. He just undid all of that. The whole team is changed now. Every strength on offense the Mavericks had is not a strength anymore. Playmaking, spot up shooting, shot creation, everything is now not a strength anymore. And defensively, that's where some things are probably going to get better. But is the team going to turn the ball over more like they have been without Luka? Nico, you're telling me you just watched this last month of Dallas Mavericks basketball without Luka Doncic and said, you know what? More of this. More. And I'm taking everything at face value. This is what you said. This is what has been put out there. And if that's the case, it's not good enough. It's the worst star trade in NBA history, and you may have just ruined a franchise. Because I counted it up. 15 teams have never had a player as good as Luka Doncic. Count it up. Never. Maybe the Thunder. 15, not 60. Still, half the league has never had a player as good as Luka Doncic, and you just traded him for what? Now, here's the thing. I know I've been going back and forth between talking to you, the listener, and talking to Nico. I'm talking to Nico right now. You better be right, man. You better be right. Because it's not just your job on the line. It's everybody's. Think about ticket sales. Comment on YouTube if you, the listener, cancel your season tickets or are not going to get season tickets again. If you won't go to a Dallas Mavericks game anymore. If you canceled your Mavs TV subscription. If you won't listen to a podcast anymore because there's a lot of you that probably will never listen to this show again. Don't do that. I'm not trying to give you the idea. Nico Harrison, you just changed the lives of so many people in your organization and in many others around it. Changed the economy of a basketball team. There's a lot around it. That's my selfish one right there. That's the one where I'm like, Nico, you just affected my life with this trade, man. You better be right. You better be right. Because history does not look kindly to some of these trades that were as bad as they are. And this was the worst one. And if you get fired because this doesn't work out, you're gone and you go back to Nike or you do your thing or you get hired by the Lakers because you were a double agent and you were playing for both sides and you were trying to do that happens to you. What happens to the rest of us? I hope you were right. And I hope you had the best interest at heart because it doesn't look like it. This trade is not one that says, I thought about Mavs fans first. This is not a trade that says, I thought about what this team would want, what the fans would want, what the players would want. Doesn't look like it. So you better be right, man. You better be right.